Hello everyone, in this lesson we're going to review expressions and variables, which is another key topic on the CSET multiple subjects subtest 2. The exam is going to expect us to understand how variables are used to represent unknown or changing quantities, how to write and evaluate expressions, as well as how to distinguish expressions from equations. So let's go ahead and get started. A variable is a symbol, usually a letter that represents a number. Sometimes that number is unknown, and sometimes that number can change. So for example, n might represent the number of students in a classroom. The value of n is going to depend on how many students are actually in the room. If there are 25 students, then n would equal 25. If another student joins the class, then the value of n changes to 26. Variables allow us to describe mathematical relationships in a much more general way instead of just using specific numbers every single time. So this is what variables are. An expression is a mathematical phrase made of numbers, variables, and operations. Unlike an equation, an expression doesn't contain an equal sign. So for example, 3x plus 5. This is an example of an expression. It tells us that we're going to multiply x, which is a variable, by 3, and then add 5. Because we actually don't know the value of x here, this expression cannot be further simplified unless we were told what x is equal to and plug that in to evaluate it. So let's go ahead and try that out. So let's say we were told that x is equal to 4. In order to evaluate this expression, we simply substitute the value for the variable. So we're going to replace the x in there with 4. Remember that multiplication can be written in multiple ways. I like to use the parentheses here, but you could also write this as 3 dot operator, 4 plus 5, or even 3 asterisk 4 plus 5. Once we move into algebra, it's not usually recommended to write multiplication with the x operator because it looks very similar to the variable x. So let's go ahead and stick with these 3 options. Let's go ahead and evaluate. So we're going to do 3 times 4, which is 12, plus 5, which is 17. And that's it. The value of our expression is now 17. So evaluating expressions is simply a matter of replacing the variable with its given value and following the order of operations. Let me remind you of what that is. The order of operations is often written as PEMDAS. Here, the P stands for parentheses. The E is exponents. The M is multiplication. The D is division. The A is addition. And the S is subtraction. One really important thing to note here for PEMDAS is multiplication and division should actually be completed left to right. You do whatever comes first. The same applies for addition and subtraction. Left to right, whatever comes first. For example, if I'm trying to do 24 divided by 6 times 2, if I were to follow that PEMDAS order and do multiplication first, I would end up with 24 divided by 12, which is 2. This is actually not the correct answer. You want to do multiplication and division left to right, whichever comes first, meaning it should be 24 divided by 6 first, which is 4 times 2, which is 8. This is your correct answer. This could be hard to remember, so whenever you write out PEMDAS, I recommend also drawing these lines to hopefully remind you to complete these operations left to right. Let's move on to talking about the difference between expressions and equations. An expression represents a quantity. So for example, 2y minus 7. This is an expression. An equation, on the other hand, states that two expressions are equal. So for example, 2y minus 7 equals 9. This is an equation. The difference is really important because expressions are evaluated using the order of operations, whereas equations are solved in order to find the value of the variable in here. Okay? So on the CSET, you might be asked to identify whether a mathematical statement is an expression or an equation. They might even ask you what the difference is between the two. So to summarize, let's remember the following ideas. Variables are typically letters that represent unknown or changing quantities. Expressions combine numbers, variables, and operations and do not include an equal sign. You can evaluate expressions by substituting a value for the variable and simplifying the result following the order of operations. We also discussed that unlike expressions, equations do have equal signs. All of these ideas are going to form the foundation for later solving equations, graphing functions, and developing more algebraic reasoning, which is all important for this CSET exam. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.